welcome to another episode of the Saturday Morning Snap Fantasy Football Podcast. Your weekly dose of news and advice that comes to your pocket every single Saturday. Holding it down, here we got Mack, Mark, Scott, and Landon. Enjoy today's show. Welcome in. It is the end of October. Can't believe it. Beautiful Saturday here in Canada. Hopefully the snow's not around the corner. But we got the trio here today. October 26, 2019. Mack, Mark, and Lando ready to talk about some Week 8 news in the NFL. We're talking Mohamed Sanu and Emmanuel Sanders shipped out of town. We're also talking about some fantasy wishes with the trade deadline coming up in the NFL. Your fantasy trade deadline, however, is approaching. Wherever you guys are, however you may be listening, welcome into episode 76 of the Saturday Morning Snap. Boys, how's it going?
Mac, it's been a minute.
Woo! Yes, sir.
How you been, my friend? Have you been up to date with all the fantasy NFL happenings?
I've been trying to stay involved. Spent a lot of time in a car the last couple days, but it's been fun, and I'm just ready to get back on the grind.
Mark, what's good, my friend?
In a car for so long, Mac?
Yeah, tell us more.
Business.
Ooh, sounds shifty.
I took a road trip with a friend of mine. He plays on tour now, so he's kind of moving down to Fort Lauderdale area for the winter, and so he said, "Hey, you want to jump in the car and drive down?" I said, "Yeah, for sure." So we drove down to Charlotte. Played some golf with a couple other guys at TPC Piper Glen, just south of Charlotte. And then we headed out to Sea Island, Georgia, where they hold the RSM Classic. Played 36 holes there. That was awesome. What a great golf course. And then we headed down to TPC Sawgrass and got out to the Die course. Sawgrass was unfortunately overseeded, so we only got to really go out and see a couple of the holes and hit some shots. But yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Wow, that sounds like a great trip, Mackie.
It was wicked. Yeah, really good.
So
but now we're back to football.
We're back to football, and it's been a weird few days. It was a weird weekend. If you owned like Marvin Jones Jr. and Aaron Rodgers, you won your fantasy matchups.
Yes, sir.
And if you owned like a great tight end like Evan Ingram, or Joe Mixon, or Kerryon Johnson, you lost your matchups. So
unfortunately,
it's been a weird one so far. We have some NFL trades happening. This league's almost getting a little bit more like NBA in a sense, I guess, where we never used to see trades, and maybe NFL teams are more run like fantasy teams, where if they're in the hunt, they're playing well, they want to make moves to get them over the edge. And we'll talk about it today on whether we think these trades are warranted or not.
Mm-hmm. No, you're right. It's kind of like Mark said, power to the players here with some of the holdouts and some of the requests to play in a winning city like Jalen Ramsey did.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Players have a little bit more pull than they used to. It's not all about the owners and the GMs. It's power to the players.
Well, you got to think about all the money that's getting slung around in these situations too, right? So, I mean, I think it's kind of interesting. It adds a little bit of flair to the league. When you flip through the fantasy notifications, I'll admit my jaw dropped today at a couple of the news tidbits there. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I'm excited about it. And I think when players are not working in one system and other teams can make them work there, I guess as long as they're not the New England Patriots, like it's cool.
Yeah, for sure.
So we're going to get into some of this stuff here. Before we do so, if you want to follow us on social media, you can get us on Instagram and Twitter at SMS_fantasy. If you want to get Landon and Mark, their episode handles are in the episode description. If you are listening to us on podcast, if you're watching us on YouTube, their handles have already appeared on the screen. So go ahead, get them there. You can also get it in the episode description of the video.
And if you're watching this, we appreciate you. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment. If you have any start-sit questions and you want it answered, we'll guarantee you that we'll answer any of your questions in the comment section on YouTube.
Guaranteed.
Guaranteed.
Woo! Okay. All right.
I mean, it's probably Scott answering, which is usually bad advice, but
We are a shout out to Scott. We are without him tonight.
yes.
Unfortunately, he has some other engagements to attend to, but that's why we have 4 of us. So the 4th tier analyst can't make it.
Well, Landon, you would never slander him if he was here, though, right? That's kind of
No.
almost like your cowardly nature.
I think it would be worse if he was here.
Yeah.
So let's jump into some news. We've got some not some fantasy trades. We have some real world NFL trades. So we have Mohamed Sanu from the Falcons, wide receiver, going over to the New England Patriots. Just a perfect fit for the Patriots team. Old, close to retirement. Just hasn't committed any crimes that we know of. No, I'm kidding. New England Patriots pick up a really good piece for a potential playoff push, especially with the news with Josh Gordon going to season-ending IR. We'll kind of talk about that one in a little bit. But Mohamed Sanu to the Patriots, as well as Emmanuel Sanders to the 49ers, from the Broncos to the 49ers. So I'm going to flip it over to you guys. Which one do you want to start with first here, Sanders or Sanu? You guys take your pick.
I think we'll talk Sanu because I think that's where most of the fantasy hype will be around, especially with this Gordon news. But I think on the down low, the Patriots are willing to give a second-round pick because they needed a backup quarterback. Because if you've seen Mohamed Sanu toss a rock, he can bomb it. And they just needed that passer rating on the Patriots.
Wait, you don't like Jared Stidham? Come on.
No. So Mac and you and I had an interesting chat about him already.
We did.
And we have a little water bet happening. So
We do.
So the first
You want to put this one on the cameras?
on audio so everyone knows, I've got a little water bet with Mackenzie. He's a N'Keal Harry truther, believer, owner in Dynasty.
Dynasty owner?
Yep.
Yes.
So I'm going to bet that Mohamed Sanu has a better first 3 games with the Patriots than N'Keal Harry, and that is easy money.
That is not easy money. That is so far from the truth. We've seen this in the past. A wide receiver comes over to the Patriots mid-season, and it takes some time to adjust. And
That's true.
I think that this piece is more of a, hey, when we get to the playoffs, because our division is trash, and we're already 7-0, and we're not going to play an above 500 or playoff team until week 9, and that is the God to honest truth. This is a guy that we're going to try to get ready for weeks 14,
Right.
15, 16. Take some time off, maybe get him some reps in 17, have a bye, and then hit into playoffs because he's an experienced guy. He can fit a system really well, and he just plays that tertiary role that they need. By that time, Edelman will be, in full playoff caliber mode.
Yeah,
N'Keal Harry
beast
will be
mode.
back. Beast mode. They've got Ben Watson back. Their quartet of running backs has been chugging along. Sony Michel's look great. So is James White. Rex Burkhead in and out of the lineup. Haven't seen Damian Harris yet. Brandon Bolden started to get goal line touches. I just think this team is going to be firing on all cylinders when it comes to playoff time, and Mohamed Sanu just brings that little bit of, security that they may have needed. So
Right.
I just don't think right now that Mohamed Sanu for your fantasy team is going to yield you a lot of value, especially
Right.
when the Patriots don't really need him to win. He's not an integral piece to the plan. He's more of a security blanket insurance plan plus a guy who has experience.
Yeah,
So,
go ahead, Mark.
I have a bit of a concern just with the fact that, when you put rookies on the Patriots roster, let's take a look at let's take a look at Damian Harris, for example. Yes, he's part of a committee backfield, but has he even touched the ball? Like, obviously
He did on Monday night
well,
briefly.
I mean, okay.
in the fourth
Okay.
quarter.
Has he?
I know what you're saying.
Has he been active and healthy for every game this season? Yes.
Yes.
He has. But he hasn't.
okay.
He hasn't done anything for the first 6 weeks. So it just leads me to
Right.
believe that in N'Keal Harry's first appearance, they seem to be a little bit gun shy getting their rookies the ball. So I think this is
Not in the
easy
case of
money.
Jacoby Myers, though.
Well,
Jacoby Myers has been getting targets.
okay. I don't disagree with that.
You can't.
I
The
think-
numbers state otherwise.
But I think even like Mohamed Sanu is just he's the type of guy that brings kind of that je ne sais quoi to the field, and I think he's the type of guy that will excel in almost like play action and like the unpredictable route running type role. So I think he'll work
Absolutely
really well in that offense, and I think he'll be capitalized just immediately.
And I disagree. Okay, so let's just put a little bit of a temperature check, a heat check on this. If Mohamed Sanu is still available on your waivers, or you can get him via trade, what are you trying to pay for this guy?
So that I would not trade for him right now because the hype is very high and people want to see it. He was probably
I would say he's a perfect sell candidate.
for sure. I agree. I tend to agree with you, Mac, for sure.
Yeah.
Especially with something hurting with Tyrell Williams or Devontae Adams, maybe Sammy Watkins if they're in the hunt and really need, or I guess if they had Josh Gordon, if they're really hurting at wide receiver, and it's very possible that a lot of people are hurting at wide receiver. Yeah, flip Sanu for a good, decent running back, decent tight end. I would do that in a heartbeat.
And trade their defense while you're at it.
No kidding.
Yeah, I just the problem here is Sanu, I think, does fit a really good role for what this team needs, but from a fantasy perspective, it's hard to buy into the fact that there's going to be enough volume for him. Just simply they're not going to need him, especially if N'Keal Harry gets involved. I understand what you're saying, Landon. They gave up a second-round pick for him. I feel like it's an insurance policy. They're going to want to get N'Keal Harry on the field if and when he's healthy. Jacoby Myers has had a really good campaign ever since preseason, kind of was popping off and has got his chance. Julian Edelman still looks great. They got Ben Watson. I just think there's so many guys here to be involved in the offense that it's going to be spread wide, and I don't know how much volume he's going to get.
I think this will just
so from
limit.
a fantasy perspective, I'm not interested at all. I don't see this as an upgrade.
I'll be interested to see that this will limit the opportunity for Jacoby and Dorsett, and that volume might go to Sanu.
I didn't even mention Dorsett.
He's
but yes,
been injured
that's
off
another
and on. It's hard to keep him healthy.
Sure. Agreed. So when you factor Dorsett in and out of the lineup, you factor in Josh Gordon now season-ending IR.
Mm-hmm.
He and Landon and I talked about this off air earlier. Josh Gordon earlier in the week had said that his injury wasn't as bad as people thought. He was trending to be a full participant in practice, and now he's on season-ending IR, which basically makes him eligible to be a free agent fairly soon. Is this just a lack of confidence in the Patriots in Josh Gordon? Do we want to speculate that there are other circumstances, hanging in the balance that we haven't thought of yet? Like, what is going on with Josh Gordon to the extent that they have to go out and get Mohamed Sanu from the Falcons?
Yeah, it's a sketchy one.
It's crazy.
I think I've been just kind of off Josh Gordon for his entire career, because like when he went to the Patriots, I didn't foresee him getting through a full season with those guys. When I saw he was activated in the 2019 season, I didn't foresee him having longevity on the roster. Those guys,
right?
Like that roster they can make anybody work in those roles. But Josh Gordon, I think, comes with a little too much baggage for me to trust, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to assume the best, and I don't want to assume that Josh Gordon is running into issues off the field. I want to hope that he's at least 100% there and committed to football without having an issue with this kind of weird thing going on with the Patriots and him going on IR when he's not really that hurt. I think is I guess brings my hope into question, but I can't make assumptions. I don't want to make assumptions. Hopefully, if he gets released by the Patriots, hopefully a good team picks him up. I think a team will pick him up right away, and hopefully he can be fantasy relevant again. Hopefully it's not to a team like Washington or Miami. Hopefully, it's a team with a good quarterback.
Agreed. Before we move on from this, do you think that Mohamed Sanu going from Atlanta to New England is an upgrade for fantasy?
Yes. More touchdown upside regardless of his role.
Mark?
Yeah, I would tend to agree. So far this year, he's had as many dud games as he's had big games. I mean, and by big, I mean double digit. But yeah, I agree. Touchdown upside goes slightly up. And I guess, when you come from a heavily passing offense, which he was in Atlanta and still couldn't make much work, I just think, everything's going to work better with a overall better personnel around him to give his quarterback better protection.
I think personnel improvement. I think a lack of passing volume compared to what he would have saw in Atlanta. I'm going to say it is a downgrade slightly. I still don't think he'll get out of that wide receiver 3/4 category.
Yeah, fair. All right, let's move
Emmanuel
on.
Sanders is going from a pretty good spot in Denver now to the 49ers, who are a run-heavy team. They do need help at wide receiver. Dante Pettis has not panned out to the way that anybody thought. I guess the 49ers thought it might go this way, seeing as they didn't promote him to a starter after preseason. But is this a good thing for Emmanuel Sanders going to the Niners, or is this just fantasy graveyard material?
I think it's a very lateral move. As much as we like to hate on Joe Flacco, he's been pretty good for his wide receivers this year. Emmanuel
Cortland Sutton's been great.
Exactly. It's a great example. And Emmanuel Sanders has been hurt a little bit, which have limited him with his opportunities in Denver. So now going to a contender. And this is what I meant earlier when saying these teams that really have hope to go for it all want to get that next piece. And for the 49ers to trade for Sanders is a weird trade for me. It's pretty much bad for every pass catcher. Marquise Goodwin showed a flash this year, but really has been inconsistent. Dante Pettis is an absolute disappointment.
Awful.
Yeah, he's been really bad. Kittle will be fine, but it's a team that runs the ball so much. Matt Breida and Tevin Coleman are great players to have on your fantasy teams. Emmanuel Sanders is not a guy I'm going to go after. He's an old wide receiver. He still has juice. We saw it. It was amazing what he did week 1. But since then, it's been a disappointment. So I'm not thrilled with Emmanuel Sanders going there. It's not a guy I'm looking at getting on my team. And it's interesting. What do you guys think about this?
To me, age and injury history make this guy kind of a no-no for me. And just the fact that they are relying so heavily on their good running backs right now, it's a tricky one. And I think he's going to have to come up really clutch for this team, because obviously they brought him on board so that they can make a serious push in the second half of the season. And he's going to have to make a big splash and not drop any balls, because I don't know. It seems like that is a bit of a curse right now with 49ers wide receivers.
Agreed. The thing that is nice here is that Emmanuel Sanders coming over from Denver, kind of being like the 1A, 1B with Cortland Sutton, now finds himself in an offense that doesn't have a wide receiver 1. It's a very mixed bag, very spread out with who's had the good games. I mean, George Kittle, if you want to consider him the primary pass catcher, is the wide receiver 1 for the Niners. So I think Emmanuel Sanders comes in and immediately takes that role as the dominant wide receiver, as the possession guy. And I think that he means more to the 49ers than Mohamed Sanu does to the Patriots. So if I had to choose between Sanu or Sanders from a fantasy perspective, I'd be more willing to put my chips on Sanders. However, I'm not over the moon about either guy.
That's interesting, Mac. You read my mind. I was about to type in the doc, is he the undisputed number 1 of that offense? And obviously you answered it for me that Kittle is the number 1 pass catcher. No doubt.
Yes.
But then Sanders is the undisputed number 1 wide receiver now coming over.
Correct.
So, you answered pretty much all my questions. I like that take, Mac. I think you've got I think you have a good way of putting things, and although we're may have different opinions, I think you put it in a good way for everyone to understand where you're at. So
you're welcome. We're 7 weeks in. We've got to see a lot of different matchups. We're trying to figure some teams out. We get a little bit of an idea of defensive trends, offensive trends, and let's talk real quick about some NFL teams that started off really hot and have kind of fallen from grace.
Yeah.
And I will happily start with my, what do I want to call them? Not rivals, but I just love to hate on this team. It's the Dallas Cowboys. Sorry, Dallas Cowboys fans.
Yeah.
I got a couple really close friends that are Cowboys fans, and this is an amazing moment for me. No, we talked about the Dallas Cowboys in, week 3 or week 4, and hey, this team looks like they can score at will. They're averaging 33 points a game. Dak looks amazing. Zeke, obviously, Mexico didn't hurt him, and we were so quick to just give them so much credit for how well they were playing. But little did we know the teams that they had played, we knew Miami was bad, but the Giants, horrendous. The Redskins, oh my gosh, and the Dolphins, man, like you would be hard pressed to beat some of the better college teams right now. I mean, they would still win, but it would be a better game than what we're seeing out of most of these contests. So, it's when you look at who they started out with, yeah, they should go 3-0. They should steamroll teams, but then they go and play the Saints, Packers, and Jets and go loss. So, I think this team, with how good we thought that they were, now they go up against above 500 teams, and the Jets are an above 500 team. They just kind of got exposed against the Pats, but the Saints and Packers are probably contenders for the NFC for the Super Bowl at this point in time. Rams are out of that conversation. Saints and Packers are sort of the top 2 dogs. They lost a close one to the Saints, really got outplayed by the Packers. So do you agree with me that this Dallas team has a definite fall from grace, or do you think that they are better than people think now, being 4-3?
So for me, I think they're not really the real deal. But to flip this a little bit on fantasy, I think this is great for all of their fantasy options. If they're going to pass the ball, Amari Cooper is going to get a ton of work. I think Zeke is starting to hit his stride and catch more out of the backfield, and I think this is great for all options. Even though Dak isn't, I would say, a top 10 quarterback, real life quarterback, and possibly fantasy quarterback in the league, I still think they have enough pass catchers. And Michael Gallup, I really hope he starts to bounce back, but I think this is great for their fantasy options. So I don't think they're the real deal. I think they're going to fight for a wild card spot, but I think fighting for that wild card spot is going to be really good for all the options in that offense.
Right. And just one team, because they're my own, just to boost up, like we saw the Packers jump out first 3 games of the year. We thought, hey, Aaron Rodgers doesn't look himself.
He looked more like a game manager than like a gunslinger.
Right. This wasn't the Aaron Rodgers we were accustomed to seeing. They looked slow. They looked, sluggish. The Matt LaFleur system was in question. Is it working? Is Aaron Rodgers buying into it? There are a lot of questions up in the air. We look back on those 3 games now. They play Chicago on the road, healthy, at home, ready to go, and they scrap out a win. Then they go and play Minnesota. Dominate the first quarter of the game, kind of hang on to that lead, and then they go to Denver and they get that W. So they start 3-0, not in convincing fashion, yet we look at the defensive rankings for total defense, and the Bears, Vikings, and Broncos, as we stated last week, are top 6, 4, 5, and 6 in the league. So you've got kind of the opposite narrative of the Cowboys right now. They started off so well and have declined, and now the Packers started off kind of slow, but still managed to win, and they're now 6-1, and people are saying Aaron Rodgers in the race for MVP. It's wild to think how fast a script can change for teams. It's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to give the Packers any more airtime than they already get on this podcast, so I'm just going to not comment.
You're welcome. Who do you guys think? What's a team that's fallen from grace?
For me, I guess I'll start, Mark. I'll give you more time to get your answer going.
Okay.
Hopefully it's not the same one. I got the Houston Texans. Houston Texans. I think they're kind of a fake good team.
Fake good.
They barely lost to. So they lost to New Orleans. They barely beat Jacksonville. They lost to Carolina with Kyle Allen. And yeah, they showed out against Atlanta, but so does everybody. So I'm not too concerned about that. And then they they beat Kansas City, but we've seen Kansas City lose a couple games, and then they lost to Indianapolis. I just don't think the team as a whole is going to be that good. Like you said, Mac, they really lost. It showed in their defense that when they lost Jadeveon Clowney, and their offensive line is just giving up too many sacks. So if they had a decent running back, like a really good running back that could be a full workhorse, I think this team would be a lot better. But also that offensive line needs to protect Deshaun Watson, or else he's not going to last. He's going to get hurt again, and it's not going to be good for this team at all. So yeah, that's my kind of fake good team in the league right now. I don't think they can make a real run in the playoffs unless they get completely new personnel, and I don't see that happening this year.
No, Colts look like to be the contender in that division.
Defense is great. Brissett's a game manager, but he's been throwing a ton of touchdowns. So, Colts I believe are the real deal in that division.
100%. Mark, you can't really answer the Bucks here because we never had high hopes. But what do you got for a team that fell from grace?
Hey, they beat the Rams at home.
That is true.
But I am going to talk about the bottom of the AFC West, and that is the Chargers, who was a team that, looking at this season, I would have thought they were right up there for one of the best teams in the AFC. Always legit contenders with one of the most stacked rosters. Now, obviously, there was a lot of concern when Melvin Gordon was holding out. Who knew what was going to happen? But I myself had faith in Austin Eckler. Sure enough, they rolled him out. He puts up almost 500 yards in 4 games, along with, I think, about 6 touchdowns. Guy played unreal football. Okay,
balled out.
They weren't necessarily winning games back and forth here, but they were a fairly solid-looking offense with that. And now their offensive line got pulverized. They lost their starters. They were starting no-name guys, and they reintroduced Melvin Gordon into this system. They have lost 3 straight. Melvin Gordon cannot do anything right now, including in the most clutch situation possible, dropping the football.
Get the ball across. Yeah.
To lose the game last week. It just seems like they have utterly crumbled, and they have gone from one of the most esteemed positions in this league to one of the lowest. And they're behind some teams right now that are, I find the Raiders to be a somewhat impressive bunch.
Better.
Better. Like they're a better team than the Chargers right now. And why is
crazy
that? Why?
To say.
I know we're going to talk about Melvin Gordon, but honestly, I think they gotta plug Eckler back into this system even heavier. If they want to keep winning these games, they gotta get him and Keenan Allen activated now.
I love it. That's great.
But we all know what happens with Keenan Allen in the second half, don't we, Matt?
Yes, we do.
All right. NFL season is in full swing. We got trade deadline coming up on Tuesday, October 29th at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Look, we get to be selfish here for a minute and talk about some fantasy trades that we'd love to see. Or sorry, I shouldn't say that. Trades, NFL trades that would benefit you from a fantasy perspective. And let's just call them fantasy wishes, if you will. Let's start with you, Lando. Do you have any fantasy trades or fantasy wishes that you would like the NFL to grant you?
All right. This one was a little bit tough for me. I'm gonna bend the rules a little bit. My trade that I want to happen for my fantasy life is Imagine this. The full Indianapolis Colts offensive line going to the Browns. Let's get it.
That is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life.
Let's go Baker. Let's go Odell. Let's go Landry. Chubb is still gonna be a beast. Let's keep Baker safe and let's get that O line over to a good team, and and everything's good. Everything's good in the hood.
I said a
Baker
wish.
Being a top 3 quarterback again.
I said a wish, not a miracle. Holy!
You guys go. I'll think of something else too for the end.
All right, I'll throw one out here. I think Mark will like this take.
All right.
Yeah, I got one here. Look, something's going on in Cincinnati. Joe Mixon, from his rookie year, I threw shade on him, said he wasn't an efficient runner. I said he just didn't look, polished. He couldn't see holes. He couldn't make the most of his opportunities. And then last year, in his sophomore year, he totally proved me wrong.
Right.
So far this year, it looks a lot like Joe Mixon from rookie campaign. And he's struggled, no doubt. The whole Bengals offensive line has struggled big time. I want to see this guy go to a place where he can be productive. Tampa Bay desperately needs a running back. I want to see Joe Mixon get traded to the Bucs.
To the Bucs.
Ooh.
Give Bruce Arians that guy. Give him his bell cow running back. We don't have to play this game every single week of going back and forth between Peyton Barber and Ronald Jones and constantly looking like fools as fantasy analysts. Give me a guy that's going to just get in there, 15 to 20 touches a week and get the job done for a team that could use a run game. I want to see Joe Mixon go to the Bucs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a few places I would love to see Joe Mixon go. We'll talk about it later, but holy man. Joe Mixon needs to get out of town. The Bengals are cancer in my mind. It's
Straight up.
Anyways,
bad.
That's bad.
So I am going to play this. I'm going to say some stuff that I probably should never say, but there's one
are
player
you trying to
that
move
I
a whole?
invested in heavily before the season, and we all loved him,
God.
and that's O.J. Howard. So we're going down to where matters are tender for me. O.J. Howard is an excellent football player, but Bruce Arians don't want to use him, and that's very painfully obvious. So what I propose is that he find his niche on a team that I care so little about, in fact, that I would be completely against them winning. Let's see O.J. Howard end up in a place like the Dallas Cowboys or the New England Patriots.
There it is. I knew we were going New England there.
I had a landing spot for O.J. Howard too. It was neither of those teams. I thought the Texans would be a nice spot for O.J.
Beautiful. Yeah, I think so too.
Try to win that division. Try to top the Colts. Akins has been good. Fells has been good. O.J. Howard could fit really nicely in with that team.
Even in Buffalo, I feel like they could use a big target like that.
Totally. Yeah,
I guess.
It's, one of the most wasted talents in the NFL right now. And as far as disappointments go, that guy is taking the cake on any of my rosters.
Hey.
Yeah.
Lando, you got one here?
No, I lied. I got nothing else.
Really? You got nothing? I got one.
Okay.
It's another running back because I love trying to save running backs.
Yep.
This guy I've traded in Dynasty because I wanted to get rid of him. I didn't believe in the Dolphins, and all of those things have come true. But I don't think he's a bad running back. I think he's just in a very, very bad situation.
Kenyon
Drake. I would love to see him fill the vacancy because I don't think Ty Johnson's going to be able to do it. I would love to see Kenyon Drake get traded to the Lions.
Right. If the Lions were contenders right now, I wouldn't put it past them.
I would not either. I don't think they're that far behind right now. They're 2-3-1?
Right.
They're going to be ahead of the Bears. They could be ahead of the Bears quite soon. The Vikings are 5-2, so that might be tough to catch them. But it might not be crazy to think that there could be 2 NFC North teams grab wildcard spots.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I think that's going to be the Vikings and the Packers that are going to be in the playoffs.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But I'm saying, like, what if it was Packers, Vikings, Lions?
Yeah.
Lions are.
I know
right
it's a
now-
stretch. It's a stretch. It's
Lions
a
are
fantasy
looking
wish.
Like a big time fall from grace team for me right now too, though. Like
Yeah.
they started off looking really well, and now they're just a bit snake bitten.
I would.
I don't see them in the playoffs.
Man, David Montgomery deserves better.
He does. He
That
totally
Chicago
does.
Bears offense is terrible. If he went to,
It's Mitch Trubisky, man.
if they're going to stay NFC, man, imagine if he was the lone back in San Francisco, how good he would be. But
What about Stephon Diggs?
We could always use a
We've
5th running back in San Fran.
he'd be still better than what he is right now in the Bears.
what about Stephon Diggs? We've heard rumblings in the bushes of him actually being traded or demanding or requesting a trade out of town. Do you think things are all kosher in Minnesota, or do you actually think that he gets traded?
Stephon Diggs, what about like in Arizona?
Ooh, no.
You don't like that?
No, not at all.
No. I just think I think Kyler just needs more like long-term help. Christian Kirk's great, but I think they would benefit from a seasoned vet, obviously a proven asset. I think. I mean, it might not be better for him for fantasy-wise. I think the Vikings are still okay for that, but.
I mean, it would be really nice in New Orleans too for them to have a second.
I was looking
big
at New
target.
Orleans. I was looking at New Orleans as well. Mike.
You think Stephon Diggs to New Orleans?
Well, I mean, just you look at how much Michael Thomas gets the ball, and I imagine that wouldn't even slow down if there was a second target, but it would allow them to score even more points, and that's a point factory in that offense. So, yeah,
No,
why not?
you're right. You're right.
I just also see the Minnesota Vikings as a big time like charging team right now. They're really heating up and have had some awesome weeks. They are putting up crazy fantasy points right now, and I don't know, just mathematically, I want to see him remain a Viking.
I think he will too.
Yeah. It
think
would
that
have to be a big trade. I couldn't see them trading him to another NFC team.
Right. Yeah, maybe not.
Yeah.
I wish the Carolina Panthers had a running back. Just kidding.
Christian McCaffrey to the Packers.
Yeah.
That's probably more probable than moving a whole offensive line. I have a legitimate question. Do you believe Mitch Trubisky is a good quarterback?
No.
Like, can the Bears win this division with Mitch Trubisky?
No. Who's a better quarterback, Blake Bortles or Mitch Trubisky?
Well, we're on the same line of thinking here. Is Josh Rosen worth saving?
I would like to see him saved by like a good team.
Like maybe the Chicago Bears?
Yeah.
Does it make sense for the Chicago Bears, who could acquire Josh Rosen very, very easily, like for next to nothing? Because we all know that they're tanking. They're probably going to go out and get Tua, move on from Fitzpatrick. He might be career backup because that's just what he does. That's who he's destined to be. Does it make sense for the Chicago Bears to go out and get Josh Rosen?
Yeah, I don't see them trading for him. I could see them signing him as a free agent when he's released from.
Like, you don't think they give up a 6th-round pick?
I don't know if they will or not. I don't think.
Well, what did the Dolphins give up last year? Like a 4th? 3rd? 4th?
I think it was a third.
Yeah, it was like the 76th pick overall or something like that.
Yeah.
Montgomery would get the ball more.
Oh.
Let's.
Josh Rosen's really good at handing the ball off.
Can I have a moment?
For.
Can we take a quick moment to see how good Allen Robinson is? Think about this guy's career. He had Blake Bortles, and then he had the next Blake Bortles in Chicago, and he's an absolute stud.
Yeah.
He's been awesome this year and super steady. I think Allen Robinson is under the radar. Like, if he had a good quarterback, actually, like if he was in New Orleans or Atlanta, he would be unbelievable.
Yeah.
He's definitely having flashes of that 1,400 for 14 touchdown season he had.
They don't throw enough to give him
Jacksonville.
those kind of numbers, Mack. But yeah, I tend to agree. He's back.
It's
to
not
that
on the same level, but we're seeing a better Allen Robinson than we've ever seen before.
Yeah, since that year, anyways. Yeah.
Do you have any more wishes?
No.
I got one. Mark?
You got more. I like it. All right, keep going.
Mark, you got one?
I'm all ears, buddy.
Okay, this one's a selfish one. It's I don't have this player in many spots. I think I have him in two out of 7 leagues. I just think with Devontae Adams injured, MVS and Geronimo Allison in and out of the lineup, I'm not sure what to make of Alan Lazard. We thought he was going to be big. Then those, Allison and MVS were activated. Jake Kumro's we don't really know what his role is, but I would love to see the Green Bay Packers add another wide receiver. Can you guess who that wide receiver is?
Corey Davis.
Oh my God, no. That's a nightmare. That's not a wish. That is a nightmare.
I thought for a second, I thought Mark asked that or answered that correctly. That would.
Oh,
I think
no.
Corey Davis has a lot of talent. He just has been stuck
Agreed.
with Marcus Mariota.
Oh, the Packers could definitely go out and get him if they wanted him. But no, it's not Corey Davis. I don't want him. This is a playoff piece. A guy that you probably signed for a year and see you later.
A wide receiver on a bad team.
Chad Ochocinco.
You're kind of close to where I'm at.
Oh, AJ Green.
I would love the Packers to sign AJ Green for the remainder of this season. Green on the left, Devontae Adams on the right, Geronimo working the slot. Oh my goodness.
Okay, do you buy into the narrative that AJ is actually healthy? He should be healthy soon, but he's not going to go back to the Bengals because they're complete trash?
No, I think that he's legitimately on the mend. I think he's close to playing, but he doesn't want to do so unless he gets the money.
Money or traded, I guess.
And the money will fly out the window if he gets to go play with Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers that are 6-1, have a stranglehold on a playoff spot, and really haven't even played their best football yet. I think he'd be very, very willing to change his tune.
Right.
That is my fantasy wish, the legitimate one for selfish reasons.
Obviously.
Yeah, duh.
So talking about this year, we're through 7 weeks in the NFL. What are some of your biggest surprises and disappointments this year? I think this has been a good episode of just kind of casually talking, not really having a plan about what exactly we're going towards, but I kind of want to give you guys an opportunity to kind of vent a little bit, or maybe say genuinely what surprised you, that what you didn't see coming this year, and what's disappointed you.
I mean, I think you can throw the whole Cleveland Browns there
As a disappointment, yeah.
The biggest disappointments for me have been Odell Beckham Jr. and Juju Smith-Schuster. I know a lot of things have changed in terms of Juju's involvement with the offense and his productivity with Ben Roethlisberger going down, but he wasn't even great. He hadn't really had that big blow-up game. He was sort of like a 10 to 14 point guy for the weeks that he had Ben, but since then, 2 dud games, sub 2 points in 2 weeks, really has kind of cost you matchups. At least he has for me. And then Odell Beckham Jr. and the Browns had the one big game saved by an 89-yard slant to the house. But other than that play, I mean, Odell Beckham Jr. really hasn't done much either that game, and then there was a 100-yard game, but a lot of duds in there too. So I think the tandem of those two guys have really been frustrating for fantasy, and their trade value is so low that you're really forced to hold on to them and hope that the situation changes. I'm really hopeful that the Browns, with this bye week in Week 7, have had the chance to reflect on things and game plan a little bit better and do what they need to do to be relevant, because it's just been so hard to own Browns players not named Nick Chubb.
I like to take a moment to recognize this surprise player for me, and that's Cortland Sutton, who is now just taking a huge number one leap. He has had a tremendous, probably about six straight games. You know what? All season long, I think there might be only 2 games in there where he didn't put up just excellent numbers for the opportunities he got. So now I'm looking at this guy like a stud. Week to week play. So love Cortland. Another huge one. One of my favorite players in the league right now is Lamar Jackson.
Ooh,
yeah.
Yeah.
He
hasn't really done it with his arm.
But he also hasn't disappointed.
No,
hasn't disappointed with
for sure.
Arm. Considering
he hasn't had to win too many games.
Working with. Mm-hmm. He's got he just puts up numbers. He makes excellent decisions. He's he's
getting
part
better.
Of a team that clearly he's a big part of, and a leader. So yeah, nothing but respect for Lamar Jackson. He's changing the game right now, and he's one of the funnest players to watch in the league.
Yeah, what's the stat? He's rushed. How many games has he rushed over 100 yards so far?
Lamar?
I think it's 5 or 6 of his 7 games.
Lamar has 500 plus 500 rushing yards right now.
Someone vet that real quick.
576 rushing yards.
It's just wild.
Yeah.
Absolutely wild.
Yeah.
He's totally breaking the mold. He is a running back that has played quarterback for a number of years. We sort of really criticize him for being a 50% passer.
Yep.
After his rookie year, and so far what we've seen from him, albeit against some pretty easy defenses, like the Dolphins, the throws that he has made this year, they've been more accurate, they've been on target, and he hasn't had to throw a lot to be successful, but in the times that he has, it's been vast improvement on what he did last year. So very, very impressive from
it's been a great surprise. Good call, Marky.
Yeah. Really good.
For me, it's a roller coaster of a season. I've had some teams that I should have good teams that are complete trash. I had 3 second-round picks in a league with Mackenzie, and then I'm in a big competitive 16-team league where Mack and I both drafted together, and my team is amazing.
Right.
So as a surprise for wide receivers, I would say DJ Chark, a guy that Mackenzie was on last year.
I gave up too early though.
I know. He's been outstanding. Mark, I really like your Cortland Sutton, and I think regardless of what happens end of season, we know right now that he's an excellent wide receiver. Whether or not he could be that low number 1 in Denver, he's still young. He's still super young. And it's just a vote of confidence from that team, and I think he's got a bright future in the NFL. I mentioned Allen Robinson as a great surprise. We'll go disappointment. And I don't want to... Go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I don't want to bring up Joe Mixon again, but
don't do it.
Absolutely. David Montgomery is absolute terrible disappointment. And Kerryon Johnson, we mentioned he's done his year in the fantasy football community, and it's really disappointing for myself. I had Kerryon in a couple spots, and I'm really upset with him. He only topped 100 yards one time, and that was against Kansas City. It's really too bad to see a guy go like that.
For
Miles
me,
Sanders has also been a disappointment.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Him and Justice Hill, you were both kind of on those guys. Haven't really panned out from a fantasy perspective, and they don't look bad on the field, but
right.
Just not the workload. For me, Austin Eckler has been a wonderful surprise. We knew how good this guy was in the absence of Melvin Gordon, but he's continued to be relevant with Gordon back on the field. And when you look at last week's game, we kind of referenced it earlier, they're only in that game because of Austin Eckler. Gets the pass out of the backfield, takes it for a big play, scores, kind of gets them back in the game. He's an integral piece of that, what could have been game-winning drive. And, they get the ball down to the 1, and then they put Melvin Gordon in. And it's like, dude, just keep Austin Eckler on the field. He deserves that. And, I understand the mentality with football is when you get to the goal line, you put in your big back and you just bruise it into the end zone. And Melvin Gordon is definitely that guy. He's been a force. He's been wildly successful and very productive when he's been in those situations, but he held out. And he hasn't had the reps so far this year, and to go back to him so quickly, it just doesn't make sense to me. And when you got a guy like Eckler who is currently 12th in fantasy scoring among all players, not just running backs, all players. The only back ahead of him are Dalvin Cook and Christian McCaffrey. So Austin Eckler's been amazing. And when you get to the goal line, like sometimes it's not best to go to the bruiser. It's best to stay with the little guy who's shifty, who can find holes, who can stay hidden behind the line of scrimmage. We don't think about these things, but I just think when a guy is helping you drive down the field, especially in game-winning fashion, leave him on the field, man. It doesn't make sense to put a guy in just because he's been your franchise guy. You got to stay with the hot hand sometimes, and I think Austin Eckler deserves that.
Yep. If any of our listeners actually listen or watch the Lefko show, they talked about that. And Westbrook said, you know what, if I got you there, keep me in, coach. Like, get me in the end zone. Like, I did all the work. Don't switch me out for a big bruiser. But
100%.
One player that we need to talk about really quickly before we go, because Scott's going to be mad that this episode's going to be an hour. He's got to edit it all. Is Damian...
Sorry, I'm not sorry.
Damian Williams.
Yes.
He has not topped over 26 yards. He has
in
only
3 games.
had a season high 13 attempts and is an absolute terrible running back. He was dropped in a league where we have a huge bench, and I picked him up for free this morning. And what do you do with a guy like Damian? He's such a disappointment because he's in the best offense in the NFL, and there should be no reason why they go away from him. Why is Shady McCoy getting the workhorse running back? Why is Darrell Williams almost tied for Damian Williams in fantasy points?
Because running backs in the NFL are replaceable, and Andy Reid has an allegiance to LaShawn McCoy.
Yeah.
God's honest truth.
Andy Reid's been known for having that workhorse running back. Now he's got an old workhorse and a bunch of
history with
middling average players that if they got the full workload, they'd be fine. But that's it. Mark, do you agree with Mackenzie, or can you make sense of this all? Is Damian just a drop candidate?
I don't necessarily think he's a drop candidate, but I think he maybe is just worth keeping in the stable because LaShawn McCoy is clearly the one who's favored on that offense. And, I mean, rightly so. If he's got a history and a rapport with the head coach, then I think obviously that is something that they are going to need to jive with. And, for the time being, while Patrick Mahomes is out, they need all the reliable pieces they can get, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess, Shady can do it all. He can catch, he can run. He looks very shifty. He looks like that slippery fish that we saw a few years ago in Buffalo.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, listen, guys, thanks for kicking it with us today. Stay tuned to our social media platforms for updated rankings and last-minute sleeper chat. On Sundays between 11:30 and 1, we typically jump on Sleeper and do a live Q&A. We've been a little bit better with getting that onto YouTube, so if you want to get some start-sit questions, some DFS stuff into us, go ahead and check us out on Twitter at SMS_fantasy and look for the injury report Sunday morning by Mr. Mark Poole on Instagram. Okay, so that'll come up Sunday morning as well. Hope you guys have been liking the content. If you're still with us, make sure you click that subscribe button. Make sure that you leave us some feedback on the video. We want to get a little bit better for you guys each and every week, so this can be the best fantasy show going. Hope you guys have an amazing week, and we'll see you guys next time. Peace. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Saturday Morning Snap Fantasy Football Podcast. Follow us on Twitter at SMS_fantasy. Support this independent podcast at patreon.com/SaturdayMorningSnap.